ladies and gentlemen of all ages, boys and girls. Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Angry Meat Production. We appreciate you coming in and letting us be a part of your lives week in and week out. We hope to do our best to present you with something that your eardrums delight in. Whether you're looking at us on YouTube or Rumble, or listening to us on Spotify, Google, or Anchor, or any of the other podcast services that we are currently on or trying to get on. We thank you. And if you don't mind, at the end of every episode, stop by, leave us a comment, leave us a like. If it asks for 5 stars, we'll take 5 stars, even if you don't like us. 5 stars are what it's all about. With that being said, we hope you enjoy our attempt to make our advocation our vocation. Ladies and gentlemen, let the games begin.
Welcome, Angry Faithful. Today on Psychos and Sociopaths, we're going to talk about Alvaro DeSalvo. Alvaro DeSalvo is also known as the Boston Strangler. Now, there's a series on Hulu where they're talking about this, but Alvaro DeSalvo was indefinitely the Boston Strangler. We'll talk about his early life right now. DeSalvo was born in Chelsea, Massachusetts, to Frank and Charlotte DeSalvo. His father was a violent alcoholic who, at one point, knocked out his mother's teeth and bent her fingers back until they would break in front of their children. He would also bring home prostitutes and engage in sexual acts with them in front of his wife and young children. The young DeSalvo began torturing animals as a child and started shoplifting and stealing in early adolescence, frequently crossing paths with the law. In November 1943, at age 12, DeSalvo was first arrested for battery and robbery. In December of the same year, he was sent to Lehman School for Boys. In October 1944, he was paroled and started working as a delivery boy. In August 1964, he returned to Lehman School for stealing an automobile. After completing his second sentence, DeSalvo joined the U.S. Army. He was honorably discharged after his first tour of duty. He re-enlisted, and in spite of being tied to a court-martial, DeSalvo was again honorably discharged. DeSalvo served as a military police sergeant in the 2nd Squadron, 14th Armored Cavalry Regime. Pictures of DeSalvo being arrested on February 25th, 1967, showed him in a U.S. Naval dress blue uniform with Petty Officer 3rd Class insignia on his sleeves. At the time of the Boston Strangler murders, DeSalvo lived at 11 Florence South Park in Madden, Massachusetts, across the street from the jurisdiction of Florence and Clement Street. Now, these crimes spanned over June 14th, 1962 to January 4th, 1964. And no one really knew how he got into the from what the documentaries they did. I guess they didn't do full research, which I did, and I got a lot of information on here. But they were setting up, they literally showed like photos of that time frame, because the whole city was scared in Boston, that they were setting up like glass bottles in front of the door, or they put stuff in front of the door because they didn't know how, at the time, how he was getting in. But let's go on to the rest of the research. Between June 14th, 1962 and January 4th, 1964, 13 women between the ages of 19 and 85 were murdered in the Boston area. They were eventually tied to the Boston Strangler. Most of the women were sexually assaulted into their apartment and then strangled with articles of clothing. One victim, an elderly woman, died of a heart attack. 2 others were stabbed to death, one of them of whom was badly beaten without signs of forced entry into the dwelling. Women assumed to have either known the killer or voluntarily allowed him into their homes. In the fall of 1964, in addition to the strangle murders, the police were actually trying to solve a series of rapes committed by a man who had been dubbed the Measuring Man or the Green Man. On October 27th, 1964, a stranger entered a young woman's home in East Cambridge posing as a detective. He tied his victim to the bed, proceeded to sexually assault her, suddenly left saying, "I'm sorry," as he went. The woman's description led the police to identify the assailant as DeSalvo. When his photo was published, many women identified him as the man who assaulted them. Early in October 27th, DeSalvo had posed as a motorist with car trouble and attempted to enter a home in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Sorry. The owner of the home, future Brockton Police Chief Robert Sproutis. Let's all hear the Sprouse. Speaking spade voice, became suspicious and normally fired a shotgun at DeSalvo. Under arrest for his roles as the Green Man rapes, DeSalvo was not suspected of being involved in the murders. Only after he was charged with rape did he give a detailed confession of his activities as the Boston Strangler, both of under hypnosis. Weird. Okay, I don't see how that's be admissible in evidence, but back then they probably did. Induced by William Joseph Bryan, and also without hypnosis during interviews with Assistant Attorney General John Boltamy. He initially confessed to fellow inmate George Nasser, who then identified his attorney, F. Lee Bailey. Bailey took DeSalvo's case, though there were some inconsistencies. DeSalvo was able to cite details that had not been made public. However, there were no physical evidence to sustain his confession. As such, he stood trial for earlier and unrelated crimes of robbery and sexual assault. Bailey brought up the confession to the murders as part of his client's history at the trial as part of an initial defense. Insanity defense. God damn, sorry. But it was ruled inadmissible by the judge. For his 1967 trial, DeSalvo's mental state was evaluated by Dr. Henry Colts, a neurologist who had established the first sex offender treatment center in Massachusetts. Bailey engaged a plea bargain to lock in his client's guilt in exchange for taking the death penalty off the table, and also to preserve the possibility of eventually insanity verdict. Bailey was angered by the jury's decision to put DeSalvo in prison for life. My goal was to see the Strangler wind up in a hospital where doctors could try to find out what made him kill. Society is deprived of the study that might help deter others, mass killers who lived among us, waiting for the trigger to set them off. Well, that's actually quite noble in his defense. I mean, there's a lot of case studies, and me and Andrea talked about this last week during our research. She coined the that I end up doing the research was the trifecta: the bedwetting, the trauma at home, and the killing of the animals. This guy did too. Killing of animals and a very disrupt home life. But a lot of people still don't understand killers at large. I mean, there's some people out there that's had traumatic home life. I mean, there's a guy that's a Navy SEAL / doctor / astronaut that he literally, I think he saw his mother killed right in front of him from his dad, and that kind of trauma. I mean, A lot of people when he went through buds were like, "Oh, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it," and he made it. And then they found out what happened to him, and they were like, "Oh yeah." Uh, it, that's what's really sad. And I'm just giving you a little bit of information on our most of the people that are in tier one are either they've not really they lived a harsh life, or B, a good percentage. I'm not saying they're psychos were ready to flip the switch and start killing everybody. And there's a lot of people that are in like tier one groups that are really nice. Every one of them that I've met, there was either like Ranger, Green Beret, Navy SEAL. Uh, what's the other ones? What was the other one? Pararescue. They're really nice people. JTAC. I've never met anybody that's as it sets as right now. Never met anybody that was been. I even met a Night Stalker. They're pretty hardcore too. But those types of even people that run the boats down the rivers with the and miniguns. I met them. They're the nicest people I ever met. Well, anyways, DeSalvo was sentenced to life in prison in 1967. In February of that year, he escaped with two fellow inmates in the Bridgewell State Hospital, triggering a full-scale manhunt. A note was found in his bunk addressed to the superintendent. In it, DeSalvo stated he had escaped to focus attention on the condition of the hospital and and his own situation. 3 days after escape, he called his lawyer and turned himself in. His lawyer then sent the police to rearrest him in Lynn, Massachusetts. Following the escape, he was transferred to a Mexico security prison known at the time as Walpole, where he later recounted his Strangler confessions. On November 25th, 1973, he was found stabbed to death in the prison infirmary. Robert Wilson, who associated with the Winter Hill Gang, was tried for DeSalvo's murder. And the Winter Hill Gang was Whitey Boyle's gang, I think. Hold on real quick. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Whitey Boyle was part of that gang. Anyways, but the trial ended in a hung jury. So basically, a hung jury is a deadlock jury, and it is a judicial jury that cannot agree upon a verdict after extending deliberation and is unable to react the required unanimity or supermajority. Hung juries usually result in the case being tried again. Yeah, I always thought that the hung jury was a jury that knew equivocally that the person did it. I guess I'm wrong, and I need to read more. Bailey later claimed that DeSalvo was killed for selling amphetamines in the prison for less than the inmate enforced sanction price. So, sorry, I ended up. I know I shouldn't laugh at that, but I have watched a TikTok earlier last week where they're talking about the selling of cigarettes, and he probably was. He's probably saying that you didn't have to do 2 blowjobs; you only had to do 1 to get the amphetamines. Yeah, I'm a sick son of a bitch. DeSalvo's papers are housed in Lloyd Sailing Library Special Collection at John Jay College for Criminal Justice in New York City. His papers included his correspondence mainly with the members of the Bailey family and gifts sent to Bailey's of jewelry, leatherwork crafted by DeSalvo while in prison. And yes, they actually the prison I was at, the All Red unit here in Wichita Falls, uh, which is an island. It's strange they call it the Wichita Falls prison, but it's an island park. But there's they make a lot of good work. They make belts. You could come in with like a picture of like a $500 belt, and they'll make it in house for like probably $100, maybe 50. I mean, you can get like, I mean, it's kind of illegal what they're doing because it's copyrighted stuff, but they'll make. I've seen like um, they make saddles, boots, cowboy hats. And then this was the first time I was seeing it or hearing about it, and then I actually started seeing it around the world. Was wood burning artwork, which when you don't have anything to do for the rest of your life, you can become a really good artist. There's a lot of good artists. One of the best tattooists I've ever seen. His artwork was really good, and he was a tattooist. So I always found like his. Anytime I was like, "Hey, dude, just I need to look like somewhat good worker." So you got an extra tattoo gun that you're not using anymore. I can put it in the bag. What's gonna get me caught? I was like, just say it's in the common area. Okay. So end up having like in the common area. It's like, hey, I found this tattoo gun in the common area. Oh, good job. Yay. It's so weird how correctional officers and mind you, there's a lot of correctional officers that do this, and a lot of the inmates, if they respect you, they're like, we'll help you out with a good job. And a lot of officers, oh, you don't do that because they think that they control you now. And after a while, it's like, hey, boss. I mean, I was like, I gotta send this soup over there, so to pay my debt. I was like, how big's your debt? He's like, what's this big? I was like, all right, as long as I don't see it, man. Uh, not gonna lie, it's one of those. Being a correctional officer is we wore gray and we run in a gray area. There's no black and white. As long as the only problems I had, and I told them right off the bat, I was like, no drugs, no. I mean, if it's food products and everything, don't do drugs or anything that if it comes back at me or a no, I will bring the law down as much as possible. Since it's been about 10 years, I can say that as long as I didn't murder anybody. I know it's sad, but sometimes you have to walk that fine line. Uh, Now there was controversy that he did not kill anybody, but on July 11th, 2013, Boston law enforcement officials announced that DNA evidence had linked DeSalvo to rape and murder of a 19-year-old Mary Sullivan. Sullivan remains were exhumed, and the stuff from District Attorney Deborah F. Conley has said expected investigators to find an exact match when the evidence was compared to his DNA. Now they did compare it to his nephew's DNA. Sorry, nephew's DNA. That was 99.9% the same. So DeSalvo, Albert DeSalvo, was the Boston Strangler. So all those murders that he did do. Now at the time there were doubts, but with the his which there's an interview with him with the inmate that he shared a bunk with. He confessed to his inmate helper or Celly. We'll call him Celly. Confession to all the murders and everything. So there was no doubt that Albert committed the moment. Jordan Nasser was his name. Then inmate DeSalvo reported confessed to is among the suspects in the case. He is currently serving life imprisonment in a 1967 shooting, which he says that he didn't do. In 2008 and again in 2009, the Massachusetts Supreme Court system denied Nassar's appeal for his 1960 conviction. In 2006, Nassar argued in court filing that he had been unable to make his case in a previous appeal because he was in federal prison in Leavenworth, Kansas, in the 1980s, and therefore did not have access to Massachusetts legal resources. Courts noted that Nazareth had returned to Massachusetts in 1983, yet he did not plead his case for more than 2 decades. Nazar was also filed a motion for a new trial in Essex County, which he was denied as he was his 2011 pension. He actually ended up dying of cancer. So, but all this in 1921. What the fuck? Okay, here now I'm getting over on this is just I'm reading this article and everything, and this let me reread this. Oh, it was okay. Okay. Politician does jokes. There's another thing that uh I'll get into it. There's two things that this has happened before. I'll give you the second one afterwards. In 1971, the Texas legislature unanimously passed a resolution honoring DeSalvo for his work in population control. After the vote, Waco Representative Tom Moore Jr. admitted that he had submitted the legislation as a April Fool's joke against his colleagues. His declared initiative was to prove that they passed legislation with no due diligence, giving the to researching the issue beforehand. Having made his point, he withdrew his resolution. This happened twice in Texas. The first time was because of DeSalvo. The other time was Timmy McVeigh. Timmy McVeigh, if you actually know, he was the Unabomber. And it's literally happened twice, and they passed legislation with no cause. Everybody says yes on stuff, and they put in stuff like this is like unanimously passed as honoring so and so, and this time they honored DeSalvo, Albert DeSalvo, for population control, which technically he was not wrong. He was wrong for what he did, but he got his point across and he withdrew it. Same thing happened with Timothy McVeigh. Anyways, god damn, I love Texas. We were assholes at times. Anyways, thank you all for listening. That last bit got me good. Cause I just look at the murder stuff and everything, and I don't really go down because it's just most of the stuff is like, oh, they're doing a Hulu movie like they are now. They're doing Boston Strangler on Hulu, and a lot of the times it's just stuff that you just it's nothing to do with the case. Sometimes it's just people putting other stuff, but that was actually pretty funny, and it's happened a couple of times in a lot of people's they trying to honor somebody. It's like y'all assholes don't really know what's going on, and they prove it, and that's how they prove it. Anyways, everybody, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Yeah, 5 stars, thumbs up, like, whatever you get our stuff from. Hopefully we get some more guests. BC, if you're listening, BC, you need to make sure you're open next week, because me, him, and Andre were supposed to talk about the whole murder, murderers with their significant others. And what's really sad is I even after I did the research, we would have probably been there for like 2 hours if we only set it up for an hour. We would probably been there for like 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, because even even I ended up going back and re-researching some of the stuff, and I've found uh a couple of them that end up getting like notes and everything from other people. But we did a good job. But good artists don't like to make perfection, not leave everything up to grabs. But anyways, thank you all for listening. Hope you all enjoy. Love you guys.